Well, good morning, everybody. First of all, I know you're probably all wondering what the heck was up with the thumbnail that I used for this particular video. I was just curious about something. It seems as though the YouTube algorithm rewards hype. So I decided to put like some ridiculous thumbnail on this and also a ridiculous title just to see if it changed the number of views. We're just curious. We don't like to hype the weather. Of course, we just try to explain it scientifically, but I just thought I'd give it a shot. We do have something, though, that needs to be discussed. We've been talking about it now for quite some time. Matt did an incredible job yesterday detailing this out for you, and I just want to kind of give you the latest. But I'm going to ask you to stick around to the end of this forecast video, because what I'm going to do is, you just saw me present earlier in the week the new National Multi-Model Ensemble forecast for summer, and it looked pretty nasty in terms of building a broad area of drought in the central United States. Well, I want to do this. I want to show you how well it did with last year, and also look at the European model forecast from last March through last spring and summer, so you can kind of get an idea on maybe which model we prefer and how the performance is. So if you just want to get right to that, it's all the way at the end down here. Just go to it. Okay, first set of kind of images or animation here is the upper level pattern that you can see in the water vapor imagery. And what we're keeping a close eye on is this deep wave right here. Now you can still see the Pacific is stacked up with another system, and this is this open pattern we've been discussing that's going to continue well past the middle of this month. We do have one lead wave right here. It's a weaker one, but it's going through Arizona and once again bringing moisture into parts of the Southwest. We do have a flood watch out for parts of this part of California. And it's not just from the rain that just came through, but the next system. But take a look early this morning at some of the moisture that's coming through Arizona. This is like some of the first meaningful moisture. They just got a little bit last week, but the first real meaningful moisture in a very long time. And quite a bit more is coming across the west. If you don't mind, I'm going to start in the west and then work our way east as we go forward, because this is where most of our kind of hazards are showing up right now. Wind issues all the way from California, Nevada, Utah, Arizona, clear into New Mexico, Texas, and this is going to get worse in the Central Plains very, very soon. These are all red flag warnings and then high wind watches. But you can see the winter storm warnings out for the Sierra Nevada mountains. We have a couple of other pockets here of winter storm warnings, like you see here in Arizona as well. And this is just the beginning of what's going to be a pretty rough end of this week. Okay, let's just start off with a good snow map too. The European model prediction through the next 7 days, which just gets us out to next Tuesday night, does not include the big system next Wednesday, Thursday, Friday that we're expecting as well. But already we can see these snowfall amounts getting to be 3, 4, 5 feet in the Sierra Nevada, and even just as high here in the Cascades. This is packing in some much needed late week snow, and on Friday I'm going to give you kind of that rundown on where we are on snowpack for the U.S. as we watch this system go across here. So we're going to get a good look at where we stand on that in the video on Friday. Staying out here, I want to look at total precipitation as well, just to kind of show you what we mean when we say Miracle March, because if we just kind of start in the northwest, I mean, grabbing another 2-3 inches of rain in through this area, there's a good chance in the Columbia Basin of a ½ inch. Of course, this changes with elevation as you go toward the east here, toward higher elevation. But in Idaho, throughout much of Oregon, and then look at California here. We've got in the Central Valley really high probabilities of 3/4 of an inch to an inch. And then, of course, gets higher the closer you get to the higher elevation here. The LA Basin looking wet. Take a look at Arizona, very wet. And so this is just going to be another 7 to 10 days of very active weather throughout the western United States. We're gonna watch it in the models in a minute, but I wanted to get the totals here. Okay, I mentioned the wind. Over the next 7 days, the GFS is predicting, some pretty nasty winds. If you take a look at the color bar down here, this kind of 60 to 70 mile an hour range is showing up here in Oregon, California, and parts of Nevada. It's in pockets throughout the Four Corner states, but then a broad swath coming out of Texas through Oklahoma, eventually getting over toward Missouri, Arkansas, and eastern Kansas. I did take a look this morning in like Midland, Texas. We've got chances of having gusts later this week in the 60 to 70 mile an hour range. Gets quite windy throughout the rest of the Midwest and getting over here toward the Appalachian Mountains and Northeast. And this just tells you the size of this system. And the issue I have down here in the Southern Plains as we keep working our way toward the east is that these strong winds are going to be blowing over what has been incredibly dry soil. Just looking at top soil moisture, this would be the top 4 inches. These percentiles, are extremely low in this area. Thankfully, some recent moisture that snuck in through here and then, of course, hit the southeast earlier this week is going to prevent, I think, much more wider scale dust blowing in this area, but there's plenty here that we've got to be paying attention to in terms of kind of a multi-day threat on wildfire and blowing dust. So I want to take you to the Storm Prediction Center's website because they also predict fire danger. And today we have an extreme risk down here in southern Texas with a broad area of critical and elevated. And you get into tomorrow, so this will be on Thursday, and this is now stretching up through the western and high plains, getting into the central plains. And then if you look at day 3 through 8, which would include Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, we see these large areas here. That would be on Thursday into Friday. This is Friday into Saturday, and this is Saturday into Sunday. We just continue to watch the threat for these next 5 days, given this large system that's coming through the central United States. On the severe weather side of it tonight, we'll keep an eye here on this kind of Arklatex region, including Oklahoma as well. The Storm Prediction Center has been on top of this now for 3 days, and we're going to take a look at what the model runs look like in a few moments for that. But as we get into the day tomorrow, this will be Thursday, this is kind of just the brief lull ahead of what we're expecting Friday and Saturday. The Storm Prediction Center has now included a very large area in the lower and mid-Mississippi River Valley under an enhanced risk and a much broader area under slight risk of severe storms. This is going to be a situation where the synoptic scale winds, this is the broader scale winds around the system not associated with thunderstorms, are going to be strong in addition to the risk of this powerful front that's going to rip through here. We've been detailing it all week, so I'm just giving you the latest updates on where we're keeping a close eye on things. Then as we get into the day on Saturday, we're going to keep a close eye on this region. I think that while you see Friday showing up as a broad area of high-impact thunderstorms in through this area, just understand that I think the setup for severe weather, including supercells, is higher as we get into the day on Saturday through parts of Louisiana, Mississippi, especially into Alabama, Georgia, and parts of Tennessee. So we must watch this very carefully later this week. Okay. So where are these waves? Well, here's the lead wave. This is the one that later today is going to give us the chance for the severe thunderstorms here. And then this is the deeper one that's going to be coming over the Rocky Mountains, initiating this late week storm system that's so high impact. And what's interesting about this is the Pacific isn't done. I mean, we still have several waves coming across the Pacific. It's not blocked up, and the pattern's still open and flowing, which has kind of been the narrative we've had for the last couple of weeks. So we need to get into the models. All right, as we play through the rest of the day today, you're going to see that first shortwave right here this afternoon, really this evening, kicking off the chances of storms. Doesn't look like much, but we'll keep an eye on that area. There is a slight risk in this region. By the time we get into late tonight, we're already seeing the snow hitting parts of the Sierra Nevada. Rain will be spreading along the coast of California down towards Southern California, and the Northwest is also getting its first push of moisture. Then this is the system that by Thursday morning, getting into Thursday afternoon and evening, is crossing over the Four Corners states, and by Friday morning is making its way out into the plains. And this seems to be a pretty classic Colorado low. And by midday Friday, we're going to watch the low emerge in parts of western Kansas. There will be some snow on the back side of it here, but there's just going to be a really strong draw on moisture out ahead of this, pretty far out ahead of it, leaving this area dry and very dusty and very windy. But this is going to be setting up that night for some severe weather here. Now, the high-res NAM only goes out 60 hours, so I can only show you through midday on Friday when we have our next low coming into the west. But if we just have a look at our combination between the GFS and the European, you can now get a sense of the timing of this. So there's the lead wave. That's the one that makes the storms tonight. There it is. And as we play forward, look at the west. There we are. This is now getting into Thursday midday, Thursday evening, getting up there to Friday early morning. This is like 1 a.m., 7 a.m., and this is early afternoon on Friday. And we're going to watch this sector open up Friday evening right in through here, which you just saw detailed by the Storm Prediction Center, where the severe storms are going to go through. I do not believe the models have the timing of this just right. They struggle with timing of fast-moving systems, but you can at least see that on Friday night, getting into early Saturday morning, that's going to be our corridor with, I think, our greatest risk for supercells to the south, possibly extending into parts of Missouri and Illinois with the risk of those embedded supercells ahead of the main squall line. So then as we go into Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon, as we saw in the models yesterday, and as we saw it in the day before, there is this second pulse down here that hits parts of the south, and that's where we have the greatest risk, I think, of multiple damaging storm systems coming through this area. Again, the timing of this is Saturday afternoon and evening. And then the whole low finally works its way to the east. And what time are we? This is early Sunday morning, playing through Sunday afternoon and evening, and that front sweeps through while we watch yet another system come into the west. Now, at this point, the central part of the country gets into a bit of a recovery mode ahead of this next storm system that shows up next Wednesday. Now, you'll notice that in the models, by the time we get out there, just 186 hours out in the forecast, that's just a week, that they have entirely different solutions. Like the GFS has a lingering front here. The Europeans dipped a low off the southeast coast. The Europeans trying to bring snow back into this area. And you're curious, like, well, what model's doing well? They both have about the same skill score right now. What they're mishandling is that next wave. Let me show what I'm talking about. If you watch the vorticity map, this is all pretty good through this Friday. And they both pin down the low in the same spot. Similar wave up in parts of Alberta, Saskatchewan, and even the next one coming into the northwest part of California. So I like the agreement through, the next 2.5, 3 days. It's then as that system goes through, there's this deeper trough, still decent that the models have similar placement. It's right as soon as we get into Monday where things start to fall apart. You see a much more open and quicker moving wave is coming through in the GFS. The European has a wave that's already got some tilt to it, but it's going to dig and try to maybe cut itself off a little bit over California. So see the difference? When you have that much more meridional flow to a wave versus zonal, meridional being north-south, zonal being west to east, the GFS kicks the thing across the country quicker next Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and the European leaves it lingering, which is why it's got the bigger snows in through here and the chance for more precipitation. I just want you to see the model differences so you understand why we have this going on out here just 1 week from now. So when we start comparing all of the models and looking at their total precip, let's actually refresh this because we should have had some models just finish running. There we go. That's what you see in the next 7 days. And my biggest concern with this entire pattern, I can pick any of the models to show it to you, is this. Let's just use the European. 10 days out, and this just continues to show dry. I mean, we're hammering the West Coast. There's a swath of much needed precipitation coming through here. We've already flooded this region multiple times this year. But it's this region that just keeps seeing these large dry slots build in. And if you think about it over the next 15 days, the probability it's staying under a ½ inch, it's high throughout the whole of the plains, getting into the Canadian prairie. And that's been a top concern of mine for months. And so until we get into April and May, which is the busy season for severe weather here, this whole pattern has to change. So I know we're talking about the critical fire risk, the winds. It is incredibly serious. But is it common? In March and early April, yes, it's common to have big dust storms down here in the south. It's just if we don't break away from what you see here by the time we get into April and May, then there's a significant story about plains drought expanding into the central U.S. Through summer. Now, who's wet in this pattern? And there's the probability of going over an inch over the next 15 days, highest here, and of course along the west coast. Here's 2 inches. We're just hammering these same areas that have been so wet as of late. Okay. Next, if we just look at all of the next 2 weeks, in fact, there we go. This is the newest update. All of the next 2 weeks in terms of precipitation anomalies. This kind of paints the picture. This is getting hit hard over the next 10 days. We've got snow for the Red River Valley of the North. We've got extremely wet conditions here. We just have our larger pocket in the middle that's showing up dry. Now, will there be streaky storms in through here? Absolutely. You're going to get those streaky, supercell type storms in here, I think, at times, especially with this system on Friday. But overall, there's a broader area that's drier, and I just can't ignore it because it continues to show up as a strong signal in the models. On the snowfall side of things, this is what we've got for the next 10 days. I just wanted to show you that this next system, midweek next week, the European model is still quite aggressive on bringing in more snow to this area and also snow here to the Red River Valley of the North. And we need it. There needs to be snow getting packed into this area. Is the GFS on board? No. It's got the snow here, but doesn't have that second system. Remember, we saw the positional differences in the troughs That was the vorticity map I showed you, and it didn't have this one. Okay, so that's one major model difference as you look out there midweek next week. But it's interesting to note that the CPC has put out in its risk map for next week a slight risk in this area. It's acknowledging that the European has something to it that we need to continue to monitor. And again, we're talking about this for the risk of snow into week 2. The ensemble's got it as well. Over the next 10 days, you can see the probability of 3 inches showing up here. And then, of course, out of our current system, the best chances coming up through the Red River Valley of having big snow here. But this also includes big chunks of South Dakota as well. Out west, the snowfall totals are huge. There's the chance of getting over 24, and here's 48 inches of snow. I mean, there's a lot in the west. Okay, the importance of this event next week. If we can get late March snow in this area, I know some folks are probably itching to get in fields, but late March snow that comes into this region, it melts, we get to keep it, and we need it because there's still a deficit here. In other words, I would rather have a bit of a delay in doing spring work now and get the moisture back in place to use later than otherwise. So there will be changes here. There's certainly going to be changes throughout the 4 corner states, Intermountain West, and then the Sierra Nevada are going to see some major improvements in their snowfall, given that we're expecting 3, 4, 5 feet of snow over the next 7 to 10 days here. Now, this next wave, here's what it looks like. This is next Tuesday into Wednesday. See it? That is the one we're talking about, that the European is showing well, but the GFS is not. After that, I still continue to see through the equinox and beyond, there's still a pattern to this. But the model is trying to kind of slow it down once we get out there to that last week of March. And if we do build western ridging, this will drop some cooler air across the east, which we've seen in some of the longer range forecasts. But as it stands, getting fully into week 2, where's our strongest wind risk? It's back where it is right now. Okay, so still in the southern plains. Where's it going to be wettest into week 2? Again, similar areas as to where it's going to be wet in week 1. So this pattern seems to have some longevity to it through the next 2 weeks. And finally, I want to show you that getting out there into week 3, week 4, we continue to see that the CPC update, which just was updated on Friday, but it's still a consistent story, has this region showing up drier with wetter eastern Corn Belt, Great Lakes into the northeast and also in northwest. But we're going to talk about this mild outlook through the beginning of April and how we could really disrupt this in early April based on some model evidence. But I wanted to give you that update on the European model's prediction from March 21 to April 21 and just continue to show that they're painting some picture along the Mississippi that if you're east of it, better chances of severe weather, storms, rain. West of it, we just see this broader area and through here that just continually shows up drier. Okay. All right. From there, temperatures. Here's today's frost risk map for the next 7 days. We're just going to look at this in every forecast video. This is the high temperatures forecast today. And here we go into tomorrow. Look at that. These are temperatures 30 degrees warmer than average for mid-March. I mean, it's incredible to see knocking on the door of 80 degrees here. Then we get into Friday. Now, this is the wide open warm sector ahead of this big storm system in the west. Look how cold it is there. Then Saturday, the system barrels through. The warmth moves to the northeast. Sunday's the big cool down on the backside. There's next Monday and Tuesday, another major warm-up ahead of, again, another system. Next Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, it starts in the west and moves east. I was just looking here, though, at the beginning of this month of March, noticing the temperature pattern. And I made a point in earlier forecast videos that if we see March get warm, stay warm, and we start to just undo this north-south temperature gradient, that can be an early signal that if not undone in April and May, could result in weaker flow once you get into May, June, July. So we need to pay attention to this quite closely. Using the European model to predict what these average temperatures are going to do, I like this sliding window approach. There's your next 5 days in terms of temperature anomalies. And if you look out there, day 5 through 10, still quite cool in the west, very mild in the central U.S. northeast, a little cooler down south. And then we just play out here to almost, the last week of March. And it's not too much different. But we have questions about what this might do overall to soil temperatures and eventually to this risk of some cooler weather in early April. I do want to point out, and as you watch this, just keep your eye on the frost line. Maybe that's easiest. Over the next 10 days, we see that frost line getting beat back farther and farther to the north with very limited time periods of which that colder air comes back in. And I'm mainly focusing on the central U.S. Corn Belt, Northeast in this forecast. But we've got some mild temperatures really reviving these 4-inch soil temperatures over the next, over the next 10 days. Now, as we mentioned, as we work our way through this sliding window, it's a 7-day sliding window of temperatures from the European model. We note that as we get into the last week of March, which is right here, and then into the first week of April, the models are pretty consistent on trying to drop some cooler air in place here. Now, we're going to watch this to see if this occurs because you've heard, I told you about this last week and again earlier this week. There's all this talk about sudden stratospheric warming events, which we did have, and all the problems we're going to have, they didn't occur. And so we look at this model trend and just watch it and just understand that, I'll stop this on April 15th. April 15th is a very common time for a large area of the country to have its last frost date. Okay, last spring frost. We'll take a look more at frost as we approach the end of March and start into April soon. But I do want you just to note that the model is not just blowing the doors open for heat all the way through early April. This is likely a feedback on the snow cover in the west. Okay, that's sometimes the model seems to struggle with that, where it just gives a cold bias because of the snow. And I just want you to see it. So that kind of gets us to the end of this, and I want to review something with you like I promised at the beginning. I showed you this, what was that, Monday. It's the new National Multi-Model Ensemble forecast through summer. So what do you have? April, May, June, July, August, July, August, September, August, September, October. And it's pretty clear that there's a strong dry bias throughout a broad section of the United States. Now, we looked at this on Monday, but take another kind of good close look at it here. Because what I want to do next is I want to go back to March a year ago and show you the forecast for April, May, and June. Now, this is the NMME. Is it a model that we just love and trust and think is the best thing ever? Well, let's ask that question. April, May, June forecast from last March. Wet central northern plains, wet mid-south over toward the southeast, drier here. Now, how well did that verify? This is what actually occurred last April, May, and June. Did this model pick up on record wet here? Absolutely not. It did not pick it up when it was run in early March. It didn't actually see this until we got into about mid-April. So already you can see the seasonal shortcomings in this forecasting model. So that, again, April, May, June. Look at this. Now, how about its forecast for June, July, August? A year ago, it was predicting drier than average conditions, Iowa, Wisconsin, and then a very weak monsoon, and then very wet from Louisiana all the way up the East Coast. How did that verify? It projected wet in through here, June, July, August, and we were the opposite. You can look at this as clear as I can. Major model failure a year ago. So why am I showing you this? Because of this. Now, I told you we have to get past the spring forecast barrier before we trust any of these models. But this is the only model I show you. I also go out and look at the European model. So what did the European model say for last April, May, and June? That was its forecast. Drier here, much broader wet sector there. How well did it do? Okay, European model, not as off as the NMME. Would you agree? And then what if we slide this forward into June, July, and August? Wetter, drier. Because kind of split it up. Wetter, drier. And what occurred? I don't know. Not too bad. It whiffed majorly in Ohio and West Virginia. Everything did. We didn't see this fully setting up until we got into the month of June. So these were the March predictions a year ago for June, July, August. Is that clear what we're doing here? I'm trying to just show you the same time periods. So I would tell you that the European model is doing better. So let's go look at it again. The latest run. That's its June, July, August forecast. More active southwest monsoon, wet along the coast this whole broad section of the Southeast, Ohio Valley, Tennessee Valley, Northeast, and it's just got drier risks in here. But I just want to be very clear. We are still not yet to the point where any of this has some sort of high statistical confidence. We're just kind of showing you the risk factors. And some models go very aggressive. Okay, that's all I wanted to do. I needed to show you that as we walk through this. Now, I'm going to be piecing together a new analog forecast system over the next 10 days. I'll show you that as it's done. But right now, we're just looking at these models and getting an idea. All right, briefly on South America. Has the narrative changed much from this week? No, it hasn't. We've already seen these maps. We know about the severe storms in Argentina, the dryness here over the last week. It's actually been around there for about 40 days. And we know that in the forecast, if we just slide down here and look at it, we're just going to use the ensemble numbers. The next 10 days, sorry about that, still look dry. Okay? But week 2 keeps showing up with this wetter signal, and the models aren't letting it go. Through the third week of April, it just shows wet in an area that we had originally predicted would be drier. I'm just going to tell you the same thing I told a group in Missouri yesterday. The trend in this over the next 10 days is going to be critical to the success of the safrinha crop grown in this area. And I am unsure if the model has actually really picked up on a signal here, or if what we're getting here is just a feedback of persistence in the forecast due to a lack of strong teleconnections, strong pressure perturbations, challenges that the model tends to have when there aren't strong signals to push it around. And you're going, well, what strong signals are you talking about? If I just take you to my website, AgWeather, and go over here to, this, we have a fading La Nina. That's tricky. We have an MJO that's trying to collapse. That's a problem. And on top of all of that, the position of the subtropical high, which is currently sitting over, this corner of Brazil. I don't know where it's going to be. So just need you to see that so you understand some of the insecurities, I guess, we have with the forecasting systems right now. And we'll continue to monitor it and talk to you about it in each forecast video. All right, have a good one. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks.